That being said, there is one aspiration that I do have for my own personal life, and that is knighthood. To be knighted by the monarch is something I aspire to do.
Why?
For me, it's a benchmark. It's contribution to society. It's not that I need it to. I don't do the things I'm doing so I get knighted, but I would like that recognition, because for me personally, that's something I aspire to.
I get that, but then equally, if I was to be given a knighthood, I wouldn't accept it. I'm like, I don't agree with the meaning behind it. I mean, as long as people have know that I was the person that did that good service, that's enough for me.
What do you mean?
I don't need to have MBE after my name or anything.
What do you mean you don't?
It's called Sir.
What does it stand for?
The knighthood.
No, you said I don't accept it because of what it stands for.
Because I don't need a pat on the back from somebody else to give me a formal title to acknowledge the work that I've done. I know within myself that that's enough. But also, I look back at, there's a really good book out by Satnam Sangera about colonialism and about how bad the British reign was in India. And it's wild. Like I've heard snippets of it, and I need to read the book as well. But him, Sashi Dord as well has put one out about it, and they just say, you guys are never taught how bad colonialism was and how bad the British reign was. And when I look at how much they contributed towards our families in India when they were living there, how much of an impact they had on them in a negative way, it makes me feel kind of horrible. Like, I'm like, if I was to be accepted by somebody who's done something like that to my family in the past, what does that mean for me? Like, am I bowing to their whim? Am I accepting and forgiving all of their transgressions in the past? Like, they still got the Koh-i-Noor jewel that isn't theirs. I could name so many things that they've done that were wrong. They still haven't apologized for the massacres that happened in India. Like, all those things. And it's just like, yo, just, if you admit you fucked up, if you admit that, we can move on past it and we can let it go. But there's never been a formal acknowledgement on it. Even on the stuff that happened in 84, there was government involvement. They still redacted it. I'm like, if you just admit you did it, we can let it go and we can move past it. The fact that you're trying to sweep it under the carpet and claim it never happened is what really grinds on me a little bit. And I only noticed this growing up. And I only noticed this when I went to university and heard about colonialism was a thing. No one taught you it at school.
Why do you live in the UK? Why not live in India then?
Because I can't choose where I came to live in. But then equally, Karan, if I choose that mentality, of saying, okay, if you don't like it, then go home, well, then everyone would stay wherever they went then, wouldn't they? But I choose it here now because I have a grounding here in England. I believe that I can make a difference here in England. Right. It's not perfect, but I can make a difference here in England and I can build a life here.
It's not perfect. Now,
however,
I would say,
doesn't mean
compared
that
to a lot of countries, again, we come back to travel, I think England as a multicultural society, right, is...
To an extent.
No, I think this personal opinion is awesome. Like, I've never, ever been subject to racism, ever, in the UK in my whole life.
You've never what,
I've
sorry?
never been subject to any racism in the UK in my whole life.
Wow, you're lucky.
Yeah.
I've
That's what I'm telling you. That's my experience. And having been to other countries in the world, the freedom I'd say I enjoy being in the UK, being a British Punjabi Sikh, is awesome. I'd never live anywhere else.
But if you have all those privileges of being a British Punjabi Sikh, it depends on how far it gets you, doesn't it? Because if you look at what happened to Jagdar Singh Johal, right? He's a British person. He's been rendered in India. Government hasn't bailed him out. They've not done anything about it. It just said, yeah, we're aware of it. But it doesn't mean that because you have British citizenship, they're going to come and rescue you.
No, but that wasn't my point. Though. My point is that's a very specific example. We don't know all the details. So yes, we know what's been said, but I don't know what the charges are against him. Honestly, I don't know, and that's not been shared. So I'd want to know the full facts and details before coming in on that.
It's basically, I think he's been rendered, and they haven't really given him a formal charge. But the way it works in India is you can keep rolling it over. You can keep pushing a court date, pushing another date, and then essentially it's mental torture. You break him down, you make him sign a blank agreement statement that you agreed to whatever, and then they pin charges on you. That's what's tried to happen to him. Now the government's been made aware of it, but nothing's happened. Now the whole concept of being British and it gets you all these special privileges, I don't think it does.
But again, you're talking British the situation now, of somebody being detained. Yeah, I'm just talking about normal day-to-day.
But that's one example.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one example. Yeah. But then Brits also have a bad reputation of going abroad and fucking things up. Right? it's just how we are as people. Mainly that's because we mistreat places wherever we go. We're not the best when it comes to being calm people, are we? There's like a hooligan-esque image associated with British people. And now with Brexit as well, the privileges you had of being British and go through border checks and stuff, that's been changed. We haven't experienced it because Brexit's been agreed. We have to go abroad and then go through those checks and be like, oh, we got to stand in that queue now.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. This has changed. So we haven't experienced that because we've all been in lockdown. Now, all these little things that made us be proud and convenient to be British, slowly being chipped away. Slowly being chipped away. And it's like, okay, again, it's not a knock on like, if I don't live here, why shouldn't I be here? Or piss off somewhere else. That's not the point. I was born in England. I'm British. I'm here.
Right.
I'm here. What can I do to make a difference? That's my mentality behind it.
Absolutely. But I would say definitely we are privileged people. We have good lives. That's my understanding.
I totally agree. And that's because our parents came over here and they gave us this opportunity. But equally, our grandparents, I mean, I wish I could talk to my granddad about like the stuff that he saw in India. That would be really insightful growing up, and what his dad saw. If he was here, I'd ask him all those questions, but I don't have that privilege. But it would be really insightful to just see how difficult it was.
Absolutely, man. It's, history is very interesting. History is interesting. It's
history's
cyclical.
Always told by the winners. You notice?
It is, but obviously you can still find, and examine the facts if you want it, or you can just listen to the mainstream. Coming back to your point you said about by Jagtar Singh, it actually made me think about a film we watched recently with the family last week. You should definitely watch it. It's on Netflix, I think. It's about a guy, great cast. It's got Benedict Cumberbatch in there and Jodie Foster. It's about a guy real story, who was taken to Guantanamo Bay for like 14 years. They basically flagged him as, you were the person who recruited for 9/11. Got let out like a couple of years ago. No charges. 14, 16 years. And the film is about him and what he goes through. And he was in, I think, Jordan. He's at a family party. They come and just take him from his party, and that's it. He never sees his mom, and sadly his mom passed away whilst he was in Guantanamo. And it was just... And that's still open, man. Like, Guantanamo Bay is still there, and things are happening, and people are detained without any charges. But it's the state of fear, that exists in America right now, that whole thing exists. But definitely good watch. Yeah. Watch it, you'll enjoy it.
What's it called?
Good question. I will tell you after the podcast.
Okay. If it's so good, you can't even memorize the name of it. Wow.
Yeah, no, but it's like one of those. It's not a mainstream film. Do you want me to look it up for you?
Tell you what, if you just go into Google and type in Benedict Cumberbatch film, you'll be able to find it in it.
Guantanamo Bay film. It's called the Mauritanian. Is it
the Mauritanian?
Yeah, it's like Mauritius, the word, but it's the Mauritanian.
Okay.
Awesome film, Netflix original.
Yo, I find it wild that you never experienced racism. That's crazy.
Yeah. I think maybe once from my neighbor who happened to be Punjabi. That was weird.
Yeah.
He was like, when you have a jewel on the top, he was like, why have you got that?
So you never experienced it at school? Nothing?
No, I always got really well with people. But this is the thing, man. Like, even now...
I got on well with people too, bro. But I was subject to it no matter what.
I don't know. Like, even now, when I'm with patients, I know sometimes when they see me, this dude's got a big beard, they get a bit scared. And then they start talking. It's like, oh, he's got bands. Like, he's like us. He talks about the chippy. He talks about only fools and horses. Like, you just break it. Like, and I find whether it's, like a builder who comes in, he's a bit of a lad, or, whatever. Like, I can build familiarity and rapport very quickly, and then people are just talking human to human. I don't know. Like you said, luck obviously one element of it, but I think I've just been around and been able to pick up these skills of, fitting in.
Yeah, I can do the same thing. But then being in lower privileged neighborhoods as well, like in West Brom,
right,
or even in local state schools that I went to, the lack of education is real there. Like, people don't understand what it is if I'm a brown person. Right. They don't understand why I have my hair. Like, those changes or that level of education isn't there. So I think you've been very lucky to not experience any of that.
My primary school was a private school. There's 24 in the class. I'd say at least 10 were brown kids. So I was the only sick with terms of like hair and stuff. But we didn't. Looking back at it, we didn't a lot of my best friends in primary school were white guys. We had loads of chill, and that was fine. Secondary school into a grammar school, a lot more brown people. But again, like 96% a year, and we chilled with all the Gore, the white guys, and we chilled with all the Gale, the black guys. Like, it was just, we just all friends. Like, there's no issue. And I think that served me well going forward into life, where it's not, I don't need to be, although now, like, you look at most of my friend circles, yes, it's predominantly brown and Punjabi. I still have other friends, as I know you have as well. And I think it serves you well, so that you're not just of one.
No, it's important because you need a balance of opinions and a balance of people around you.
Yeah.
In order to be able to develop relationships with other people. I mean, to go to the opposite spectrum, there's family members of mine that have only been to Sikh schools. And I'm like, oh, you've only experienced, you've only been to like, oh, my Lightstein.
Okay.
Yeah, my Lightstein. You've only been to Sikh schools and you've only been to like Khalsa College. And I'm like, oh, you've never actually built a relationship with somebody that's not Punjabi, so how are you going to talk to them? So I guess there's opposite spectrums, right? It's the same thing happening within our people, but then it's also happening in main society as well.
Yeah, because and I always say that to people. Like when I used to run a like a Sikh class at the Gurdwara, I used to teach about 5 years in uni, and a lot of the focus obviously was about Sikhi itself, so learning about Sikhism. But the other stuff was like, guys, look, you're going to go into jobs, right? And you're going to be mingling with people who aren't Sikhs. So you need to develop that skill set, that you can have these conversations, because life, that is life, you need to get away from this caste, colour, creed, religion, and just know how to be with people. It's probably the life skill that I think is the softest skill, underrated, not talked about at all. People think you just pick it up. It's really, really important.